Meine sehr verehrten Damen und Herren, ich darf Sie heute ganz herzlich zu unserem Webinar Gesundheit und Medizintechnik in der Benelux-Region begrüßen. Mein Name ist Spalek, ich bin der österreichische Wirtschaftsdelegierte in der Benelux-Region. Was erwartet Sie heute in diesem Webinar? Wir werden Ihnen in den nächsten 60 Minuten einen Überblick über die drei Märkte, Belgien, Luxemburg und Niederlande geben und insbesondere zu dem Thema Gesundheit und Medizintechnik. Die Veranstaltung, das Webinar, ist kofinanziert durch das Wirtschaftsministerium im Rahmen von Go International. Nach einer kurzen Einführung gibt es dann die Länderinformationen, Top-Trends in der Benelux und dann gehen wir schon direkt über in die Schwerpunkte Gesundheit und Medizintechnik, Belgien, Luxemburg und Niederlande. Als Vortragende freut es mich, dass wir neben den zwei Mitarbeiterinnen vom AußenwirtschaftsCenter in Den Haag und in Brüssel, Frau Celina Pierloz und Martina Eicher, auch Herrn Thibaut, CEO von Covartim und Ron De Graaff, CEO von Seijgraaf, begrüßen können, sind beides absolute Spezialisten in ihrem Gebiet und werden Ihnen einen guten Überblick geben können, wie das Gesundheitswesen in dieser Region organisiert ist und wie Sie auch als Unternehmen im Bereich Gesundheitswesen Fuß fassen können. Was bieten wir als Außenwirtschaftscenter? Wir bieten lokales Markt- und Branchenwissen in Form von Wirtschaftsberichte, Branchenprofile, Fachreports. Wir organisieren Events wie das Webinar jetzt, Showcases. Da ermöglichen wir österreichischen Unternehmen, sich hier vor Ort vor Kunden zu präsentieren, Marktsondierungsreisen, um eben zu schauen, wie der Markt ausschaut, Zukunftsreisen zu innovativen Themen. Wir verfügen aber auch über lokale Kontakte zu Politik und Verwaltung, Geschäftspartner, unterstützen Sie bei der Forderungseintreibung, rechtliche Informationen, steuerliche Informationen. Wie schaut es jetzt in den jeweiligen Ländern aus? Das Königreich Niederlande ist mit 17,3 Millionen Einwohnern doppelt so stark bevölkert wie Österreich, ist der zweitgrößte Agrarexporteur der Welt nach den USA. Mit dem Hafen Rotterdam, ein Logistik-Hub, ist sozusagen das Tor nach Europa. Der Markt ist international orientiert und sehr offen. Die Niederlande sind seit jeher eine Handelsnation. Die Wirtschaftsstruktur sehr stark auf KMUs, aber auf der anderen Seite auch mit starken Industrieunternehmen wie Shell, Unilever, ING, Heineken und Philips, selbstverständlich auch für Sie. Wir haben über 2000 österreichische Unternehmen, die in die Niederlande exportieren. Die Summe der Exporte im Jahr 2020 betrug 2,8 Milliarden. Das war ein Minus von 3,9%, was auf die Pandemie zurückzuführen ist. Wir haben 170 österreichische Niederlassungen. Die Niederlande dienen auch seit jeher als wichtige internationale Drehscheibe für Produkte im medizinischen Sektor. Die inländische Nachfrage wird allerdings durch Importe gedeckt. Es gibt in den Niederlanden 500 bis 700 Importeure oder Großhändler im medizinischen Sektor. Der totale Markt für Medizinprodukte beträgt 4,7 Milliarden. Die Gesundheitsleistungen werden 2021 um 5% steigen. Im abgelaufenen Jahr sind diese um 6,5% gefallen und wir hoffen schon, dass heuer sich das irgendwie kompensieren kann. Es gibt zahlreiche Projekte, insgesamt 660 Millionen Euro investiert die Stiftung Herrenloh in Pflegeeinrichtungen. In Hilversum fließen 330 Millionen Euro in das Krankenhaus Tergoi und auch die Klinikgruppe Nordwest investiert 277 Millionen Euro. Wie schaut es in Belgien aus? Belgien, 11,5 Millionen Einwohner, zeichnet sich durch die Dreisprachigkeit und die drei Regionen aus. Wir haben die Wallonie, das ist die französischsprachige Region. Wir haben Flandern, das ist die niederländischsprachige Region. Und dann gibt es noch eine kleine deutschsprachige Region an der Grenze zu Deutschland. Brüssel selbst ist zweisprachig. Wir sehen das dann weiter. Also im Großen und Ganzen können Sie in der gesamten Benelux-Region mit Englisch auch arbeiten, vielleicht mit Ausnahme der Wallonie, weil man dort hauptsächlich Französisch spricht. Die Wirtschaftsstruktur ist ähnlich wie in Österreich, hauptsächlich KMUs. Aber auch hier einige große multinationale Unternehmen mit Produktion in Belgien. 2500 österreichische Unternehmen, 100 Niederlassungen und Exporte im abgelaufenen Jahr von 2,5 Milliarden ist ein Minus von 10,9. ist auf die starke Reduktion der Autozulieferindustrie zurückzuführen, die also gerade in Belgien starke Spuren hinterlassen hat. Wie schaut es hier in Belgien im Medizinsektor aus? Der belgische Markt für Medizinprodukte betrug im Jahr 2018, das sind die letzten Zahlen, die ich finden konnte, 3,5 Milliarden Euro. Laut dem Branchenverband Medtech sind ca. 350 Unternehmen mit 20.000 Mitarbeitern in der Medizintechnikbranche tätig. Was den Außenhandel betrifft, sind die Exporte von Belgien höher, 10,6 Milliarden exportiert Belgien und importiert 9,5 Milliarden an medizinischen Produkten. Aber was für Sie interessant ist, der Import bedient einen großen Teil der belgischen Inlandsnachfrage. Wie schaut es nun mit Luxemburg aus? Luxemburg ist ein kleines, aber feines Land, 600.000 Einwohner. Es ist ein absolut unterschätzter Exportmarkt. 185 Millionen haben wir im Jahr 2020 exportieren können. Somit liegt Luxemburg vor Chile, Argentinien und Marokko und hat ein Plus von 1,1% erwirtschaftet, was gerade im Jahr der Pandemie ein absoluter Erfolg ist. Die Region ist dreisprachig, Deutsch, Französisch und Luxemburgisch. Wie ich aber bereits vorhin erwähnt habe, kann man mit Englisch dort auch sehr gut arbeiten. 1500 österreichische Unternehmen exportieren nach Luxemburg, 20 Niederlassungen und ein weltweit bedeutendes Finanzzentrum. Der Finanzsektor trägt 30% zum BIP in Luxemburg bei. Das wohlhabende Luxemburg ist auch ein sehr interessanter Markt für die Medizintechnik. Im Süden des Landes entsteht gerade eine Großklinik, Südspital, und dieser Klinikbau verspricht viele Aufträge im Medizinsektor. Wir erwarten im Jahr 2021 Importe von ungefähr 140 Millionen Euro. Zurzeit ist es so, dass Belgien der wichtigste Exporteur von medizinischen Produkten ist, aber das ist darauf zurückzuführen, dass Antwerpen mit dem zweitgrößten Hafen oft ein Durchgangsland für Waren aus Drittmärkten ist. Danach kommt Deutschland mit 21%, die Niederlande mit 13% und Frankreich mit ca. 7%. Wie gesagt, die Geschäftssprachen, wir haben Niederländisch, Deutsch, Französisch, aber Englisch, will ich sagen, mit Ausnahme von der Wallonie, ist die Sprache, die Sie überall verwenden können. Was sind die Top-Trends, die wir in dieser Region haben? Für Sie besonders wichtig, Gesundheit und Medizintechnik. Deswegen sind Sie auch heute bei diesem Webinar dabei. Bau ist auch extrem wichtig. Sie haben das auch gesehen mit den verschiedenen Spitälern und Projekten, die hier gebaut werden. Aber auch der Wohnungsbau ist in allen 3 Ländern von großer Bedeutung. Man hat einen hohen Nachholbedarf. Agrar- und Nahrungsmittelindustrie. Wie gesagt, die Niederländer, der zweitgrößte Agrarexporteur der Welt. Erneuerbare Energien ebenfalls, Zulieferungen im Industriebereich, Transport und Logistik mit den 2 großen Hubs in Belgien mit Antwerpen und in den Niederlanden mit Rotterdam. Hier kriegen Sie noch einen Überblick über die österreichischen Niederlassungen in den Benelux. Da sehen Sie, dass wirklich alles, was Rang und Namen in Österreich hat, hier entweder in Belgien, in den Niederlanden, in Luxemburg oder in beiden Ländern vertreten ist. Das ist jetzt nur ein Überblick, es gibt selbstverständlich viel, viel mehr. Gut, ich darf jetzt an Herrn Thibaut weitergeben. Herr Thibaut ist CEO von Covartim, ein Unternehmen, das sich ganz auf Medizinprodukte spezialisiert hat und von der Konzeption und der Validierung von medizinischen Geräten über die Entwicklung von Prototypen zur Herstellung und den Testen alles abdeckt in seinem Unternehmen. Und ich werde den Vortrag an Herrn Thibaut weitergeben. Es wird auf Englisch sein. Mr. Thibaut, you will speak in English. Thank you very much for being here with us, and you are on air. Thank you very much.
Thank you, and thank you for the introduction and also the invitation to talk about the Belgian market. As introduced, I'm the founder and managing director of an engineering company specialized in medical devices, in vitro diagnostics, and digital health, so that we accompany manufacturers through the whole cycle of product development, as you probably can know. So on top of fries, waffles, beers, and great chocolates, we have a booming ecosystem in the medtech or health tech scene. Our industry is divided in 5 segments: in vitro diagnostics, consumables, implants, investment goods, and everything that goes outside the hospital or the daily doctor practice, that includes digital health. That employs around 20,000 direct and indirect employments in Belgium. So just to highlight a few of the manufacturers that are well known in Belgium, there are different companies working on specific tests for tropical disease, for more general lab tests, but also COVID, as you can imagine right now, in the field of IVD. We have manufacturers also quite renowned for consumables, being in surgical settings, also for testing or for, as you see there, custom-made devices. Also in the fields of implants, we have companies working in bone regeneration for orthopedics, in eye surgery, and also sleep apnea. Some of them are on the stock market listed, and even the major world leaders are investing in those kind of startups in Belgium. In terms of investment goods, the biggest known is IBA, which creates not even machine, but actually rooms for prototherapy. But there are other players developing solutions that are built in hospital. And finally, digital health, the fifth segment, it is the most booming, to be honest, in our country, because in terms of development, you would need a computer. It's so booming. You have here a couple of examples. I couldn't make one single slide with everything. You have companies that have only a mobile application or web application, or a combination of hardware, this system, sensor linked with an application. And then we will talk about connected devices. But there it's so broad that on the Belgium scene, it was necessary to identify which of those solutions were actual medical devices, and that could lead later on to even proper reimbursement to facilitate market access and also usage access for the patients. That's why Belgium has endorsed a program which is called the mHealth Belgium, that is partially financed by the government and the industry. They created a platform where you can actually identify which application, mobile application or digital health solution, is a medical device and which could pretend to being a candidate for reimbursement. It is quite unique in our country, and it is totally publicly accessible. So even you remotely, you can have access to that platform and look around for kind of digital solutions that are available in our country. And in there, you would have a three-layer cake that explains how a digital solution can be reimbursed. You see, the first layer is the first condition to be on that platform is to be qualified and certified as a medical device. This is made, and as I said, as it is a government initiative, it involves many official stakeholders within our industry. That's why you see there on the first layer for the CE mark, there is the involvement of a national competent authority, which is the FHMP in English, who is going to assess that a digital solution has received a CE mark. Most of them are self-certified, but still they have a role to play in verification that everything was done according to the regulatory framework. The second layer is checking for interoperability. As was introduced earlier, Belgium is, let's consider, split in three: the northern part, the center part, and the southwest part, Flanders, Brussels, and Wallonia. Each region has a different way of working around hospital network and communication. That's why one single digital solution within Belgium must be interconnectable with all the different systems in the different regions. It's only when you have reached the second layer, then you can become a candidate for reimbursement. And this is again managed by the NIHDI, which is the official organization that deals with reimbursement in our country. As I said, being quite broad within the reach of the main stakeholders, it started as an initiative of the Belgian Medical Device Technologies Federation, BMedTech, and the Technical Federation. The federation are representative of the industry. They are the ones talking with our politics. They are the one representing the industry best interest. So with the Belgian government and the different region, because there is a split of responsibilities, those two federations managed to create these kind of platforms, as I said, including the major stakeholders into one single program. When you will go on the website, this is what you will see, an example of one mobile application where you can see in which layer that solution is for the moment. Today, officially, there's 23 applications, mobile applications, that are referenced on that platform. A lot of other products are still coming in, and you will see that there is a broad range of application indications treated. Just to go rapidly through the layer again, if you would be interested to enter that program as well. First aspect is, as I said, being a CE mark product. If it's a class 1 certified and you notified yourself to the national competent authority, if you are class 2A or plus, you will need to submit then the notified body certificate, CE mark certificate. For the interoperability, this is the most technical aspect where you will actually have to run tests on the application with different portals, and there is a specific checklist and test report that you will need to submit. The third layer, being reimbursed, this is the holy grail, of course, because that will allow a great success of a product, potentially. Today, this is still, honestly, the highest target to reach. That's why it's on the tip of the mountain. We have much more initiative from private insurance to actually reimburse a digital solution today in our country, rather than having an official way of reimbursement through mutualities and other financial means. So until recently, let's say, reimbursement of digital solutions were made through private companies, private insurance companies. Then last year, in the middle of the COVID crisis, there was a boom of telemedicine usage. That was something that was known for a long time. Telemedicine could help a lot, but then being confined at home and having a chronic disease that still required follow-up from doctors remotely, then there was a big interest into telemedicine solutions. One of them has officially been recognized as being reimbursed for certain within a certain boundary for some trials about health economics, but still, it was the first case in our country, and I'm talking about almost 1 year ago, which is not that far away in time, that it has been the case. And at this moment, it's still the only one. But still, there are a lot of manufacturers there, not only digital. I go back to the full picture with the 5 segments. There are a lot of companies that are building up and then being created. And you will see here that is a projection of the number of health tech companies existing in our country. In the last years of that graph, we are in 2016, we are almost reaching 250 companies. Today, we should be around the 300 in total, because there are a lot of startups creation. And it is partially explained by, of course, the available money. We have really strong mechanism for public funding, but also a lot of VCs that are targeting and switching from pharma, biotech to medtech or health tech. So that means that there are a lot of capital raised. Again, if I would need to update that chart up till 2020, included within the COVID crisis, the capital raised in 2020 should be around the 100 50 million euros with dedicated VC funds for Healthtech. This is one reason why it's booming. There is the money, but also there is the opportunity. There is everything you would need within the ecosystem to build up Healthtech solutions, from the skills creation with engineering schools for biomedical development, acceleration program around medtech specifically, incubators, research centers who have international, who are famous internationally. We have, of course, developments means with OEMs and test centers for verification. And for validation, we have a lot of clinical university research hospitals, which are also gathering a lot of key opinion leaders in various fields. And there is quite an easy way to get access to those key opinion leaders to actually run a clinical investigation on medical devices, which means that if there is a lot of research hospitals, there are a lot of clinical research organizations as well that can accompany manufacturers in that field. This is the best way to enter hospital in our country, is to start a trial with investigators, of course, to get a solution spread and known, but also in terms of sales in our country, depending on the size and the amount that needs to be spent for buying your solution as a manufacturer. There are also facilities to go straight back to the user. You can convince surgeons to prescribe a digital solution or a medical device. It's only in specific cases and depending on the amount and the hospital group organization that you will need to go through public tenders. So with that, I hope I have given some overview of the market and the industry. And just to highlight again, we are split in three in Belgium, within quite a tiny country still. As a manufacturer and even as an external foreign manufacturer who wants to enter our country market and industry, those are the main entry points, depending on the region you want to target. Those are networks or clusters. The cluster with our country, the way we define that is a group of people active in the same field where they try to network, share common knowledge, infrastructure, and try to develop new research projects. I will now leave the floor to Celina, who will also talk a bit more about the bigger picture of the industry, and then continue with Luxembourg. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much for this very clear overview of the main actors on the Belgian medtech and healthcare market at Kyun Thibaut, and for explaining the pioneering role of Belgium with its mobile platform for mobile health apps. I will continue with some additional information on the Belgian market, and afterwards I will briefly cover the health tech industry in Luxembourg. Belgium is traditionally perceived as a more conservative market, but has a surprisingly innovative character and a very good ecosystem when it comes to life sciences and the medtech industry. According to Medtech Europe, latest report in 2020, Belgium landed in Europe's top 5 for import and export of medical devices, directly behind Germany, the Netherlands, and Ireland. Of course, Belgium also has some very well-established life science clusters, and some newer medtech and health tech clusters, such as Flanders Health and Health Belgium, both initiatives that foster the synergies between digital technologies and life sciences or medtech. of course, because of the pandemic, the pandemic has had a very strong negative influence on a lot of industries in Belgium, and has also shown some shortcomings in the Belgian healthcare system, but it has had a lot of positive outcome as well. For example, it has sparked a lot of initiatives to collaborate across borders. For example, the Care and Industry Together Against Corona initiative, which was organized by EEN Flanders and Flanders Care, the government of Flanders. Apart from that, Belgium is also a very strong innovator. According to European Innovation Scoreboard of 2020, Belgium was ranked on the 6th place, behind the innovation leaders such as the Netherlands and Luxembourg. But if you look at the COVID-19 innovation report, which was compiled by UNAIDS Health Innovation Exchange, Belgium ranked as the top country in Europe for innovation relating to the COVID or the fight against the coronavirus, and actually 4th in the world. Only the US and Canada and Israel did better in this list of 32 countries and 80 cities that were analyzed. And also an important addition is that the city of Leuven, which is a Flemish city, was elected European Capital of Innovation of the year 2020, next to other cities that are also internationally recognized for their innovation scores, such as Antwerp, Ghent, and Brussels. Some startups that were, for example, internationally applauded for their innovative technologies were Materialize. They developed a hands-free 3D printing fitting for door handles, so you would be able to open up the door with reducing the risk of transmitting the virus. Biteflies, which focused on wearable health technologies and created a patch that monitors COVID-19 patients at home and reducing the need for hospitalization. Then the last one I would like to mention is Ergotrix, which developed an inflatable ventilation pillow to help patients breathe when they were in intensive care units lying on their stomachs. The current crisis also led to progress, I think, in the regulatory framework, as Mr. Thibaut so kindly pointed out, and the reimbursement process for mobile health apps. And I think what also came forward from the crisis is that the sector has shown a very high flexibility to adapt to virtual and hybrid forms of networking. And I think that's a trend that is definitely here to stay. So I have listed or given a small overview of the main events that are being organized and upcoming in the near future on the Belgian market. In case you would like to have additional information on them, I would definitely be open to give you more information about them. Or you can visit the website of these different organizers to have more information. I think important to point out is, for example, the Belgian-German online meetup of digital health that will be organized by Flanders Investment and Trade, and we'll look into the challenges and opportunities, and also what has been learned by this reimbursement process that has been introduced for mobile health apps. one of the biggest life science conferences in Belgium is being organized in Ghent, which is Knowledge for Growth. And then there's also the Medtech meetup, which is being organized by Covartim and takes place in spring normally, and is also a place where you meet up with a lot of stakeholders and get presentations about new developments, new startups, and etc. I've also listed the main sources and main authorities that Thibaut has already mentioned before, and also linked them to the website. So when we will provide you with presentation afterwards, you will be able to directly click to the different websites. The cluster that is for the Federation for the Medical Technology is Medtech. mHealth Belgium is an initiative actually started by this federation in cooperation with other actors. Then there's, of course, the Federal Agency for Medicine and Health Products, which is responsible or the competent authority for all things considering the quality and the safety of medical devices and accessories. They also started the initiative of the e-health platform to exchange information between healthcare stakeholders. FPS Public Health is the public service that is responsible for the safety and environment and public health. Some informations of those different websites on those different websites of the authorities are available in 4 languages, such as of FPS Public Health. But for example, for Federal Agency for Medicines and Health Products, it's mainly available in Dutch and French. They are actually changing that and also adding English, but it's quite a slow process. So I hope they would definitely change that in the near future. Then also Mr. Thibaut mentioned the NIHDI, which is the National Institute of Health and Disability Insurance, responsible for the reimbursement of medical devices and medicines. I think one of the biggest hurdles for Austrian companies to access the market is definitely the quite rigid regulatory framework. The division of competences, as Mr. Thibaut pointed out, a bit of bureaucracy, which is, I think, common for every country. And then the lengthy decision-making processes, so it takes a while before something is implemented. And of course, another barrier might be the local languages, which we have also already covered. Now I'm going to give a quick overview of the Luxembourg market. Of course, this country is quite small and the market is very compact, but I think Luxembourg is definitely worth mentioning because of their expertise in digital technologies, telecommunications, cybersecurity, artificial intelligence and big data analytics, which is, for example, very important for applications such as personalized medicine. To give you some key facts and figures on the health tech industry, which is a very young sector there are around 136 companies. 46% is diagnostic, focusing on diagnostic and medical devices. 25% is biopharma companies, and 29% other health technologies. Around, if I'm not mistaken, around 38 companies also focus on digital technology, have a focus on digital. And the industry comprises around 1,880 employees. 95% of the companies are micro or very small enterprises. and 55% is located outside of the canton of Luxembourg. Similar to the Belgian market, I've also listed the main authorities and clusters. Agence e-Santé is the Luxembourg equivalent to the FAMHB in Belgium, so the Health Ministry. Then there are the clusters Luxembourg Trust, Trade and Invest, Lux Innovation, and the Luxembourg Healthtech cluster is actually associated with Lux Innovation, the innovation agency of Luxembourg. To give you an idea of some recent initiatives, there has been a joint call for Healthtech projects that would actually foster or look for partnerships to stimulate research and design regarding health technology. And in the summer of 2019, Luxembourg was actually one of the first to start exchange of patient data with other countries. So they are envisioning the exchange of patient summaries and electronic medical prescriptions with other countries. So the information would become available for the doctors abroad or the other way around. Now you might actually wonder what we can do for you. Our services are, like Mr. Spalek has already pointed out, we actually look at it individually. So whenever we get an inquiry, we evaluate on a case-to-case basis how we could provide the best possible service to you. We contact cluster organizations, governmental institutions if necessary. We research potential business contacts, organize B2B events, and also attend local key events within the sectors. Apart from that, we also publish market reports. Our report on the Belgian healthcare and medtech market will be finished soon, normally, and also become available to you. We also post regular news updates on our country websites for Belgium, Luxembourg in German, which might be familiar to you, WKOLT. But also on LinkedIn under the name Advantage Austria Benelux, and on Twitter in German. Now I would like to present to you the next speaker who will cover the Dutch market. Hello, Mr. De Graaff. I leave the floor to you.
Good morning. I hope that you enjoyed the presentations about Belgium and Luxembourg. And in the coming 15 to 20 minutes, I try to give you some ideas about the Dutch market for healthcare. Before we go to the slides, a few points. There are two different markets. One, a consumer market. Two, a patient market. The consumer makes his own choices and he pays for his own choices. A consumer can be an individual, but can also be a hospital who wants to buy investment goods. That are the consumers. A patient doesn't make his own choices. A doctor tells him what to do, and the third party who will pay the costs and who pays decides. So it is important to know who will be your customer and who will pay. Is it a consumer market or is it a reimbursed market? And for a reimbursed market, there are three issues. That's important to know. You need to fit in the system that will say that the product or service has a code or is listed somewhere. Two, you need to have a positive decision from authorities that the product or services is reimbursable. And three, finally, your distributor, the hospital, needs to have a contract with the payer. And the payer can be the health insurance company, the municipality, and that's important to know. Now let's go to the slides. I'm not going to read all the slides because you can read it yourselves, but I will go quickly through it because we have another 15 minutes and a lot of slides. So let's start with the overview of the regulations of the Dutch healthcare. We have, of course, a lot of acts. Here you see the acts which are corresponding with the authorities which are responsible: health insurance companies, zorgkantoren, municipalities. And you see the numbers of how many there are. Additional insurances, we have two, and that is not organized in a certain law. It is a private insurance given by the insurance companies. Let's go to the next slide and tell you something about the Health Insurance Act. It's a compulsory basic insurance. Everybody in the Netherlands needs to be insured. It is mandatory. The government decides about everything in that act. The principal idea of our healthcare system is that products or services which are according to the standard of care and daily practices are to be reimbursed. Cost a lot of money, we pay for it, pay a premium, and we pay taxes for our healthcare. And to be sure that we have the right number, we have 17,480,290 people insured in the Netherlands last month. The Health Insurance Act, we have the so-called collective contracts that a lot of people together make a contract with an insurance company. People individual makes contracts with insurance companies. Interesting to know that 3/4 of the people do have a budget in kind. That will say that the insurance company decides where they can go, what they get reimbursed, and they don't see the invoices. 18% of our population do make his own choices, get the invoices, and send the invoices to the insurance companies for a reimbursement. So that's the difference between the people. 3/4 of our people doesn't make choices, insurance company does, and 1/4 makes his own choices, and the insurance company just has to pay. We are free to move from insurance company to insurance company, and more than 1 million persons do this every year, looking for the cheapest insurance company. And that's the interesting thing to see in the Netherlands. A consumer wants to pay not a lot of money for his insurance, but when he is a patient, he wants to have the best and the most expensive healthcare, and that doesn't fit very well. 83% does have an additional insurance, and the cost of healthcare is quite a lot of money. We have competition in healthcare because insurance companies are for profit, or as we say in the Netherlands, they are not for loss, but we see most of them are for loss, but that's depending on the time and the pandemic. What's insured in the basic health insurance? You can read it: medical care, hospital, dental care, etc. Medication is also covered by the basic insurance if the medicines are listed in the GVS system. It's quite a procedure to get in the system. And also the medical devices are reimbursed when they fit in the so-called medical aids regulation. When are products reimbursed? Our national institute, the Dutch Health Board, they give the decisions about is it reimbursable or not reimbursable. And there are a few questions. Is it a health problem that matters? Burden of disease. Is there a solution already? And is this solution working? Are the costs reasonable? And always the important question in the Netherlands, can the patient pay it by himself? Do we have to pay it as a collectivity? Can society do this? And the next step, as said before, you need to have a code and a tariff. And there we have the Dutch Healthcare Authority, NZA, who is responsible for giving the codes and deciding about the tariffs. But for your understanding, medicines and medical devices, does it need to have a separate code? They have to be listed in the GVS system for medicines or in the regeling hulpmiddelen for the medical devices. When they are listed, they are reimbursable. And as said before, the reimbursement decision is made by the Dutch Healthcare Board. We call it the ZIN. When is a reimbursement? Investment goods are to be paid from the budget of the institutions. So there is no reimbursement discussion about investment goods. A hospital, a GP practice, they decide about their own investments. And it is part of the tariff that they can charge to the health insurance companies. So the health insurance company doesn't matter about where the investments are done and what they buy, it is part of their business of the institutions to make their own decisions. But products or services given to a patient, inpatient or outpatient, that must be paid on the regulation. And then we are back at the three regulations I meant in the first slide: de Zorgverzekeringswet, Wet Langdurige Zorg, Wet Maatschappelijke Ondersteuning in Dutch. They have, of course, English names, but it will be too difficult. The Zorgverzekeringswet, health insurance companies are responsible. It is hospital, GP, medicines, devices. The Long-Term Care Act, nursing homes, home care. And the WMO, this is from the municipalities, covers all kinds of social support, including medical devices for well-being, etc. So there are three different laws with different responsibilities. How does it go in practice? Hospital care. A hospital, the code of a hospital is a DBC, the Dutch DRG. A hospital can charge DBCs. In a DBC, there are codes and subcodes for all the activities and products. A product with a code is reimbursable. A product without a code, not reimbursable, and it must be paid from the overall budget of the hospital in this case. A hospital negotiates with the health insurance companies about budget and DBCs. So there are the deals made. But you have to understand that a health insurance can decide not to negotiate with the hospital because it is not mandatory to contract all the hospitals. When a health insurance company thinks, I have enough hospitals contracted, then it is that. And in the situation that people does have a policy budget in kind, that the insurance company tells them, okay, you're insured with me, you can go to those hospitals and that's it. You are not allowed to go to the other hospitals, but then you have to pay yourself and you get a certain reimbursement, about 75% of the cost. So you have quite a high on risk. In that way, health insurance companies are steering the patients to a certain hospital. Yeah, and you as a manufacturer, you want to have your product in the hospital. Yeah, you need, of course, to find the doctor who would like to have the product. The hospital does have internal budget. The doctor has a certain budget with his group of doctors. And they have also the internal lobby to have the high budget in the hospital. When they want to have a new product, of course, a product with a code and being reimbursable is preferred because then they can charge it to the insurance company. And if there is no code, then you as a manufacturer have to take care that there is one, because otherwise they can't send the invoice. When you go to the daily practice, we see that hospitals have assortment committees where the decisions are made. Hospital is always looking, am I able to sell this treatment, this product to the insurance company? Because they are contracting with the insurance companies and they could say as insurance company, we don't want this, we don't buy this from you. So a hospital is always keen to see if this is able to be sold to the insurance company. And for your information, tender process for private hospitals, and almost all the hospitals in the Netherlands are private, is not mandatory. You see in practice a lot of tenders because they do not understand the market. They want to have a lot of information and they write a tender. But at the end of the day, said, okay, we don't use the tender, we have enough information and we make our own decisions. Because that happens in the market. If we go to the products in the outpatient market, yeah, a GP or a medical doctor in hospital can prescribe medicines or medical devices. These are reimbursable in the outpatient market. In this situation, it is in the outpatient market that the health insurance company negotiates with the distributors. Distributors are pharmacies, medical supply shops, who can deliver the medical devices or the medicines. They negotiate tough about prices, about volume, about quality. Insurance companies are able to make preferences. You may deliver product A, but not B. They make deals about a certain budget so that a distributor can choose in the budget what he will deliver. So it is quite difficult to understand from outside what's happening, but you have to understand that the business is made between distributors and insurance companies. And you as a manufacturer normally doesn't have a contact and a contract with an insurance company. So you need to find a distributor preferably one with contract with an insurance company, and he can do the business with insurance company. It is a little bit changing, but we see that some manufacturers are trying to have a contract directly with the insurance company, but it is not yet the system, but maybe in the future. The same more or less with the municipalities. Municipalities have to tender this public money, and normally they have only one supplier, one distributor who does do everything. So if you as a manufacturer want to sell something to a municipality, you need to find the distributor with the contract, you do the business with the distributor, and the distributor does the business with the municipality. That's how it works. And you have to be aware who is where and what does he do and does my product fit in his portfolio. Some numbers about the market: 61 general hospitals, 8 academic hospitals with a lot of locations. We have a lot of private clinics in the Netherlands, but they are all specialized in eye care, dermatology, etc. We have 23,000 medical doctors. We have a lot of nursing homes. We have much more GPs with a lot of practices, pharmacies, dentists. You can see the numbers. And depending on the product in the market you want to know, there's a lot more to say about these people. Then I have a very difficult slide to understand, but it is more to give you an idea about the process when you're coming with a new device in the outpatient market. We presume that the product is having the CE, and your product, we call it Me Too. Me Too is the wrong word today. We call it today the technical variant of the original product. If you are a Me Too product, you are reimbursed because this product you are the Me Too from does have already a code and is already reimbursable, and you are the same, so you are also reimbursed too, no problem. But when you are not Me Too, then there are two situations. One, you have evidence, EBM, evidence-based medicine. If you have evidence, you go to the ZIN or to the health insurance company, you tell them it is according to the stand van de wetenschap en praktijk, standard care and daily practice, and you're in the regeling hulpmiddelen, so you are reimbursable. If you don't have evidence, then there are 3 situations. One, your product is still experimental, forget it, no reimbursement, never. If it is something you can do with the Dutch Health Board, they have a regulation that you have conditional finance, that's a possibility. Or you go to an insurance company and say, listen, let's try with my product. We have a certain rule on innovation with some money, and you can do some business with insurance companies. So that's the way you go in the system in the outpatient market. A lot of more issues, of course, but it's to take too much time to talk about everything. If you go to the hospital, more or less the same. As said before, you need 2 things, a code and a positive reimbursement decision. If there is already a code, yes, it's also a Me Too product, then you are reimbursable. If there is no code, you have to go for the code, a care activity code or a care product code to the Dutch Health Authority. You need a scientific organization of doctors, you need a patient organization, you look a lot of fuss before you're having a code, but it is doable. If you have evidence, okay, reimbursement opportunity, no evidence, some options, wait for your evidence, 1, 2, 3, 4 years. Try to sell it in the hospitals from their budget. You don't have a code, so it is not reimbursable for them, but maybe they have some money in the budget. You can do it case by case, depending on the patient and the burden of disease. It's the hospital and insurance companies can make deals about it. There is the guideline for innovation so that you can have extra money, or you have the conditional admittance. That's also a big story to obtain that money, but it's also a possibility to have your product in the system. So there are a lot of ways in the Netherlands to have your product reimbursed. And we have seen that we have quite an open market. We see also that doctors in hospitals are open for new innovative products. Where they're coming from the Netherlands, from Belgium, or from Austria, everybody is welcome. And it is very easy to find a market for you. And as said before, you're welcome to do your business here in the Netherlands. And then I would like to give the word to my colleague next to me, Mrs. Martina Eicher.
Thank you very much, Ron, and thank you very much for this wonderful and insightful information about the Dutch health market. I think we can learn a lot how to enter the market. Ich wechsle jetzt auf Deutsch, ist auch ein bisschen leichter. Ron De Graaff von Seijgraaf Consultancy arbeitet schon viele Jahre auch mit uns erfolgreich zusammen. Also wir, das sind das AußenwirtschaftsCenter Den Haag. Und wie gesagt, wenn Sie Fragen haben, auch noch im Anschluss und nach dem Chat immer gerne an uns wenden. Wir helfen Ihnen gerne weiter. Wenn Sie jetzt sich entschieden haben, jawohl, Sie wollen sich in den niederländischen Markt arbeiten, eingehen, wir haben jetzt aktuell für Sie den Branchenreport Niederlande Gesundheit und Medizintechnik aktualisiert. Der ist auf Anfrage für Sie verfügbar. Und zusätzlich, wie auch Ron schon erwähnt hat, die Kontaktdaten von den medizinischen Großhändlern, die Distributionspartner, die wichtig sind, die man braucht, haben wir auch die entsprechenden Daten für Sie zur Verfügung. Dann möchten wir Sie noch auf 2 Veranstaltungen in den Niederlanden hinweisen. Im September 2021 wird der Kongress The World of Healthcare organisiert. Das ist eine Plattform der niederländischen Regierung in Zusammenarbeit eben mit Branchenvereinigungen, wo dieses Jahr virtuell Meinungsmacher, Entscheidungsträger sprechen werden und Sie können sie da auch vernetzen. Wir werden Sie später dazu noch gerne informieren, wenn Sie daran teilnehmen möchten. Und im Oktober 2021 haben wir vor, eine Marktsondierungsreise Gesundheit und Medizintechnik gemeinsam mit unseren Kollegen aus dem AußenwirtschaftsBüro Brüssel zu organisieren, wobei wir Philips Healthcare Innovation Center in Eindhoven besuchen möchten und das IMEC in Löwen, wo wir aber natürlich momentan noch nicht sicher wissen, ob es auch wirklich eine physische Reise sein wird, aber auch da halten wir Sie gerne auf dem Laufenden. Somit ist unsere Präsentation über den Benelux-Markt, Gesundheitsmarkt in der Benelux-Region zu Ende und ich möchte jetzt gerne alle anderen Sprecher wieder einladen, zu uns zu kommen, sich zu zeigen. Danke. Und ich übergebe gerne das Wort an unseren Wirtschaftsdelegierten Michael Spalek, um unsere Q&A-Session zu leiten.
Thank you very much, Martina. Thank you very much to Mr. Thibaut and to Mr. De Graaff. I think it was really very, very interesting to see what is going on in the market in Belgium and in the Netherlands. Also, thank you, Celina, for this very good information you could give us also about Luxembourg and also Belgium. I have one question for you, Mr. Thibaut. How the hospitals organize their purchasing?
It really depends. It really depends on the again amount. As I mentioned, the public tenders begin at a certain amount. I guess it's around the 8,500 cost. But any doctor can decide to go for a solution. Doesn't mean he pays for himself, but he can go directly through his hospital supply chain system. But for higher amount, it needs to go through public tenders, and those are specific for each hospital. We don't have a centralized, let's say, buying system, except in certain hospital groups. The ones that are organized by groups, you can go to a higher end and have the negotiation at that level. But other private hospitals, they will have their own supply chain system.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much. Because in the Netherlands, it's how in two words how you can say it, Mr. De Graaff.
Yeah, in the Netherlands, the hospitals are forming buying groups. Hospitals are working together when they are not in the same region. Otherwise, it is a monopolistic situation, and that we don't want. So hospitals groups are working together, 7, 8 hospitals. And it might be that they do a tender, or it might be that it is just one-to-one negotiations. And we see often that one-to-one negotiations are taking place so that the manufacturer has to come to a certain group, gives presentations, talk about prices, etc. So that is the daily practice. We see that the academic hospitals try to buy also as a group in other countries as a group. So they are making use of German buying groups support. They have been trying to set up an office in China to buy directly products in China. That wasn't a success. So it differs. It is also depending on the product. Is it a mass good or it is an individual product? It depends on the situation. But normally you try to have a doctor that he is willing to have the product, and the doctor in his institution, in his hospital, has to do the business with the assortment group, and the assortment group in the buying department is taking care for the buying process. So if the doctor doesn't want, the buying group doesn't buy.
So as I can hear from you, the decision from the doctor is in the Netherlands very important. Is it in Belgium also so important, the decision of the doctors, or is it more the purchasing department who is in charge?
There has been a fight on prices, of course, due to a refinancing a hospital, but it's no longer the cheapest solution that will eventually be used and deployed within the hospital. You need to have the buyout of the concept, the product itself, basically based on usability and look and feel from the daily practitioners, the one that are going to use it. If they see a clear benefit of one technology or one device compared to another, they will do everything possible to get it in their hands. Yes. So same as the Netherlands, they have a huge weight. That is why I also explained during the small talk about research hospitals in particular. If you can get in some investigational, even post-market surveillance activities, a tryout with investigators, to already get them into the usage of your product or your solution. That's a great entry point.
Thank you very much. I mean, you also spoke about a brand. I think brand is something very important nowadays. We hear it every day. There is with the vaccination, you have the AstraZeneca. Most of the patients didn't want to have AstraZeneca. The other, they only want to have Pfizer. So I think that in all this medical area, the people, they are getting a lot more, they want to have more the mark they want, the brand they want. What do you think in the Netherlands, and maybe you in Belgium, if really the brand is getting more important nowadays?
This is very, it is a very interesting question, because a lot of company doesn't do anything about branding, because they have to contact with the doctors, and the doctors make the decision, and that's it. If a patient is going to an hospital for a new hip or a new knee, you don't ask as a patient for, I want to have brand A or brand B, because you don't know and nobody tells you. So brand is not an issue. But if we look to some products which are in the reimbursement and are going out of the reimbursement, it happens sometimes that the government decides this is what we are not going to reimburse anymore, then we see that people doesn't know the brand, doesn't know the product. And also the companies are aware of this. They don't do anything about branding for the outpatient market. And that's an issue for the coming year. And we see now for the first time, and you mentioned it quite right, that people do have an understanding about brands and about the working of a product. So we don't want Astra, we would like to have Pfizer. And that's quite new. So I think that for the future, the branding will be very, very important for companies to work on that, think about that, for the Dutch market, of course.
Belgium would be the same. You may or may not know that one of the leader in hearing implants has a development center in the northern part of Belgium. It is the #1 in the world, so they're really known for cochlear implants. You will see that in that field, you would see a lot of YouTube videos of people getting that are impaired on the hearing function. They will actually film themselves when they tune the implants on for the first time. Or you will see videos of a baby hearing the sound of her mother for the first time. And when you look at the reviews, people are looking at what is the brand of the company, what is the model. Because through this kind of social media, there are a lot of discussions around the efficacy of a product, and also features. I can swim, I can run with that. And when you go on those websites now for those brands, you will see that it looks like an Apple website with a lot of features, everything you could do in your life, but it is actually an active implant. It is a medical device. But still, they are more putting out the image around that rather than the technical aspect of the product.
Thank you very much. Very, very interesting.
But you have to be aware about the laws that it is forbidden to make active reclame, advertisements about healthcare products. So in the OTC market, you may active, but in the other products, it is more or less forbidden. So there's also a difficulty how far you can go. So there's always a question.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Last but not least, as we spoke before, we are planning in September, October, more in October, if the restrictions allow us, to make a trip to Belgium and to the Netherlands, and we will visit IMEC in Leuven and Philips in Eindhoven. So maybe very shortly, Celina, could you tell us what we are expecting in IMEC, to see what is IMEC doing, so that the people, they can be a little bit informed, and afterwards, Martina, in 2 sentences, what we expect to see in Philips, and afterwards I think we will have to finish because we already passed the time. Please, Celina.
IMEC is actually one of the most renowned, I think, innovation centers in Flanders, but also internationally known. They focus on chip technology and also cooperate with a lot of clusters in Belgium and actors in not only technology, but also in Medtech and life sciences. And we might go to Leuven if the restrictions allow, to also visit a health house, which is also an innovation center next to the IMEC building, actually, and focuses on the innovations that were introduced during the pandemic and the future of healthcare, actually. I might give an overview of that.
Thank you.
That was interesting for Austrian companies to see.
Martina.
Yes, Philips, Eindhoven Philips, I think, is a very well-known name in the healthcare business, and they have built up this healthcare innovation center where all the newest developments can be seen and watched, and I think this is a very inspiring place for entrepreneurs in Austria to go there and see what still is possible, or maybe they can work together in a way. So that's maybe that's the aim. Yeah.
Thank you very much to everybody. I will switch to German. Es hat mich wirklich sehr gefreut, dass Sie soweit fast alle noch online sind. Wir können das hier überprüfen. Es war wirklich überaus interessant und es würde mich sehr freuen, wenn wir wirklich in der Zukunft diese gesamte Region, die Benelux, bearbeiten können. Und wie gesagt, wir erwarten Sie in der Benelux-Region. Und zuletzt, à bientôt dans le Benelux. Besten Dank. Wiederhören.
Wiederschauen. Tschüss.